Now I welcome you to another video of this playlist of chapter number 1. So next topic is physical quantities. In physical quantities we will discuss mainly base quantities and derived quantities. So the foundation of physics rests upon the physical quantities in terms of which the laws of physics are expressed. All the physical laws which are based depends upon these physical quantities, so therefore these quantities have to be measured accurately. These quantities are mass, length, time, velocity, force, density, temperature, electric current, and others. We will see which are these base and which one are derived quantities. First, we will define the categories of these physical quantities. Physical quantities are derived into two categories like base quantities and derived quantities. Base quantities are those, derived quantities are those whose definitions are based on other physical quantities. Derived quantities are those which depends upon the other quantities like base quantities. So velocity, acceleration, force, these are the derived quantities. Usually they are viewed as derived quantities. Next one is the base quantities. Base quantities are not defined in terms of other physical quantities. The base quantities are the minimum number of those quantities in terms of which other physical quantities can be defined. So when base quantities are combined together, they form the derived quantities, or the derived quantities are defined in terms of base quantities, and base quantities are those in which other terms cannot be defined. They are independent, like length, mass, time, etc. So these are the examples of base quantities, and these were the examples of derived quantities like velocity, acceleration, force, etc. So I have written here that A is equal to V over T and F is equal to ma. A is the acceleration, V is the velocity, T is the time. So V, velocity and time, mass and acceleration, they are base quantities, and they are multiplying each other to form a derived quantity. And similarly V over T are being used to find form a derived quantity. So here it is written that length is equal to L, time is equal to T. These are the base quantities. These are being used to form the derived quantity. So this is the difference between derived quantity and a base quantity. That base quantities are independent, they cannot be formed from other quantities, but these derived quantities can be formed or can be defined in terms of base quantities. Now next one is how to measure these base quantities. The measure of a base quantity involves two steps. First one is the choice of a standard. First we will set a standard in which the quantity is to measure. Second one is the establishment of a procedure. We will establish a procedure for comparing the quantity of to be measured with the standard, so that a number and a unit are determined as a measure of that quantity. First one is the choice of standard, like in which like for example distance. Distance units are normally meter, it may be millimeter, but first we will set a standard like we are measuring in terms of meter. Second is the procedure for comparing the quantity to be measured with the standard. Second one is that first step is that which standard follows the quantity to be measured, in which terms it will be measured, in which unit it will be measured, like 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter. So these are the two measurements of the base quantities. These are the two steps in which the base quantities are measured. Next one is the ideal standard. Ideal standard has two principal characteristics. First, it is accessible and it is invariable. Ideal standard is that one which is accessible and it is invariable. It cannot be changeable, and accessible means that it should be easily accessible or knowledgeable to anyone. These two requirements are the often incompatible, and a compromise has to be made on them. So that's all from this video. This mainly consists of physical quantities, which involve base quantities and derived quantities with the differences along with their examples. So this is a short MCQ written over here and for your information, like diameter, order of magnitude of distances. This can be important MCQs.